All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, when you think about the Southeastern Conference, one of the first things that definitely comes to mind is football. And rightfully so, as we're talking about a league in the SEC that has won 14 national championships in football since 2003. But it's not just about football anymore when it comes to the SEC, as basketball is once, or is now at least, at the forefront as well. Now, normally when you think about SEC basketball, the first word that comes out of one's mouth is naturally Kentucky, and rightfully so, because only UCLA has won more national championships in men's basketball than the eight that Kentucky possesses. But things have changed for the SEC, as this is now or this basketball league rather just set the record for the most bids by a conference in one NCAA tournament, as they got 14 of their 16 members to the big dance. And with the Sweet 16 right around the bend, seven of those teams are still flying the SEC's banner. So, how did we get here, you ask? Well, the SEC has really hunkered down and committed itself to basketball as a league. And like a good friend of mine recently said, it's not just, it's okay to not just be a football school anymore, okay? You just look at the coaches' room alone, basketball wise in the SEC. You got the likes of Rick Barnes at Tennessee, Bruce Pearl at Auburn, and John Calipari at Arkansas, just to name a few. And when you think about the SEC, the commitment to having the best sports facilities in the nation, okay, for like all the bulk of their sports, and having the big television deals for football definitely helps that. We've seen the power of the NIL and the transfer portal really, have a stronghold on this current NCAA tournament, as only the Big Ten can go blow for blow with the SEC in regards to money and resources. So you look at this in the SEC, seven of the final 16 teams in this NCAA tournament are from the Southeastern Conference. And of course, with that said, will the SEC tie or even break the mark that the Big East set when they sent three teams to the Final Four in 1985? And surprisingly, that's the only conference that has ever done it. This feat has never been tied. We've seen multiple leagues get two teams in the Final Four at the same time. Since then, the Big East has gotten two teams multiple times. The ACC, the Big Ten, and the Big 12. But nonetheless, at some point, I think somebody's going to tie and possibly break that record, because right now we're talking about an 18-team Big Ten, a 17-team ACC, and then 16 teams in both the Big 12 and the SEC. It's bound to happen sooner or later at some point. But nonetheless, with this tournament so far, we're guaranteed to have at least one SEC team in the Elite Eight, as Kentucky and Tennessee are set to meet tomorrow in Indianapolis in the regional semis. And of course, you look at that, the Wildcats come into that game as the 3 seed, while Tennessee is number two. But it's Kentucky that won both meetings with the Vols this year during the regular season. So you got to ask yourself, will the dominance of the SEC in this tournament continue? I mean, you're looking at it like this, and this is really shaping up to be something interesting. You basically have the Big Ten SEC Challenge in the South region. You got Auburn taking on Michigan, and then, of course, Ole Miss taking on Michigan State. Possibility of two SEC teams facing off in the West Regional Final. You got Florida; they got to take care of Maryland first, and then Texas Tech faces Arkansas. The East region, okay, is the only regional where the SEC does not have at least two teams. And of course, there's only four conferences left in this NCAA tournament, and that East Regional is the only one where all four of those conferences are represented. You got Duke set to meet Arizona later tonight, as well as BYU and Alabama. So, nonetheless, so much for anybody that was out there saying that the SEC was overrated this year, because at the end of the day, this is where you prove your worth, and they're doing it in the NCAA tournament. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't think that the SEC should have gotten 14 teams. Listen, no disrespect to Oklahoma and Texas, but if you finish 6 games under 500 in your league play, it's really tough, in my opinion, to make a case for you to get to the field of 68. Of course, Texas had to play in one of those playing games. They lost to Xavier. And of course, Oklahoma was one and done in this tournament as well. But nonetheless, from what we're seeing as far as the bulk of the teams getting in and advancing, is this a harbinger of things to come for the Southeastern Conference? I totally believe so because A, when you've got a mega conference like this, okay, that's number one. And B, the pressure to win from day one at these football schools now, because, and it's due to the transfer portal and it's due to the NIL. You think about Kentucky and Mark Pope. He came in, he's a UK alum, he won a championship there. He hit the ground running this season, and, he had success in the transfer portal. The same thing for John Calipari at Arkansas, another first year coach there. So you got to win, and you got to win right away. So I think this is a harbinger of things to come. And it's one of those where the only SEC school that was really good this year that's still not playing is Texas A&M, and that's due to the fact that that was a 4-5 matchup in the second round against Michigan. Michigan has a darn good team. And when it's all said and done, like I've said before, those 4-5 matchups are toss ups. But when you think about dominance in the SEC, I've talked about football, of course. You can't overlook that. The same thing with basketball. And you can't forget about baseball. Why? Because every single year for the College World Series, when you blink, well, before you blink, rather, the SEC is sending at least 3 schools there. Okay. And I think that trend is going to continue, especially when you bring the likes of a Texas into the fray in that league. But nonetheless, I think, the teams, for the most part, from the SEC, the 7 that are left, sans Arkansas. And the only reason I say sans Arkansas is because their season's been so up and down, okay? And sometimes it just takes something to click and get it going. And you look at the coaches that John Calipari was up against in rounds 1 and 2 in this NCAA tournament. He had to face Bill Self in Kansas, a national championship coach, and of course Rick Pitino in St. John's, another national championship head coach. Arkansas was probably the only team that's left out of the SEC that was probably the biggest surprise that they're still here. You expected Auburn to be here. The same thing for Florida. The same thing for Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Kentucky. And now it's the meat and potatoes of this tournament, as you will, as far as like we're really going to see the elite of the elite go out there and flex their muscles. Auburn has a tough game on their hands this Friday when they take on Michigan. The same thing with Ole Miss taking on Michigan State. Florida, I expect them to get past Maryland tonight. I truly do. Arkansas is going to have their hands full with Texas Tech, and then Alabama's going to have their hands full later tonight with BYU. And then, like I said, somebody's going to get to the Elite Eight from the SEC, whether it's going to be Kentucky or Tennessee. We've just got to wait and see. But nonetheless, I think this is a harbinger of things to come. And of course, one would ask, well, if you get one team that's so dominant in a tournament, does that take away from this year's NCAA tournament? And I'm here to say absolutely not, because guess what? If you're a football fan and you got multiple SEC teams playing for the national championship or multiple Big Ten teams, whatever, you're still going to watch because you're a football fan. And, we've seen teams from the same conference face off multiple times in the NCAA tournament, and people still watch. People are still going to watch because People want to see good basketball. And the seven SEC teams that are still in there are good basketball teams. All 16 teams that are still in this tournament are good basketball teams. So I do not think uh, that it takes away from it. You're going to have people who are going to chime in because they want to see the SEC lose. You're going to have people who are going to chime in because they want to see the SEC win. And you're going to have those people who are going to chime in because they just want to see good basketball. And what we're seeing, and I think we'll continue to see this weekend and for next weekend in the Final Four, is you're going to see good basketball. The SEC was a quality league all season long, and they are just simply flexing their muscles right now in the NCAA tournament. Will that continue? And will we get three or possibly four SEC teams into the Final Four? It's going to be tough because of the teams that they are facing. These are all quality teams that are left for the most part. All of these teams have been ranked for the bulk of the year. I know Arkansas was a 10 seed, but at some point they were up there as well. But nonetheless, credit to the SEC. They have really clamped down and put the focus on basketball. The proof is in the pudding, and it's showing. And let's see if their success will continue this weekend on the hardwood. But, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Also, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'd be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.